Welcome to Newfoundland and Labrador Studies 2205. This is Unit 2, The Roots of Our Culture, Section 2, Lesson 1, Peopling the Land. I'm Miss Fleming, and I'm very excited to get started on this section, so let's go. Before we begin, I'd like for us to talk about something that's very important. While there are many theories about how humankind began to populate the Earth, it is largely agreed in the scientific community that Homo sapiens, humans, spread out from Africa about 200,000 years ago. Before we dive in any further, let's ponder the following question to help guide our learning. Why do you think early people started moving from Africa to other areas? As we go throughout this lesson, and throughout this section as a whole, I want you to think about that. What would make people move out from that area? So first, let's talk about migrating to the present-day Americas. In the present day, Africa is separated from the Americas by water. But one theory is that there was once a land bridge called Beringia, which is now underwater. Beringia connected Siberia to Alaska at some point during the last ice age, sometime between 9,000 and 50,000 years ago. And it is speculated that these people then spread across the Americas, including present-day Newfoundland and Labrador. What you are seeing in the cream color is what is the speculated land bridge, and what is outlined is Siberia here, and Alaska here. From the way maps are usually drawn, we don't tend to think of these two land masses as being that close to one another, but they are very, very close. So let's now talk about the Ice Age forward. Once Beringia disappeared beneath the sea, the large land masses of the Earth were isolated from each other. From the Ice Age forward, there were two enormous groups of people populating two vast land masses on the Earth, completely unaware of the existence of one another. Now, I wanted to bring up two out-of-date Eurocentric terms that you may have heard before, which divided the world into what they called the Old World, containing Europe, Asia, and Africa, and the New World, containing the Americas and Oceania. We obviously know that these terms are out of date and untrue, but just in case you had heard them before, I wanted to address it here. Let's talk about population distribution. When the 15th century ended, there were approximately 40 to 60 million people living in the present-day Americas. The most densely populated areas were the modern-day sites of Mexico and Peru. These areas were largely agrarian, meaning they cultivated the land. The largest city, Tenochtitlan, at the site of modern-day Mexico City, had approximately 250,000 people, making it larger than any European city of that time. So because of largely Eurocentric education, we tended not to think about other cities outside of Europe, but there were many sophisticated cities that were quite large in other areas of the world, and Tenochtitlan was bigger than Paris, London, Rome. All of those cities at that time were not as big as this one. In other areas, like present-day Canada, Brazil, and the United States, the people were mostly hunters and gatherers. Hunter-gatherers needed to live about 10 square kilometers of land from their resources in order to survive. Once population density exceeded this area, some hunter-gatherers had to move in search of new resources. Unfortunately, this movement could create conflict, but it also created trade networks. When populations began to move outward to find new resources, they came in contact with other peoples, and sometimes conflicts ensued. This was further cause for migration, as many groups did not wish to have conflict over existing resources. Changing environmental conditions were another reason for migration across the land during the 15th century. Most people who lived on Turtle Island were hunter-gatherers, but some were agrarian, growing crops such as maize and beans. These variations in resources and crops instigated a vast trade network where people began trading with neighboring groups. Goods traded included food like dried fish, maize, and beans, raw materials like obsidian, chert, and shells, and manufactured items such as pottery, knives, and needles. If you're not sure what obsidian is, it is a volcanic glass-like rock, usually very dark or black in color. And chert is a very valuable, durable stone that is used in creating a lot of tools. This trade network is a great example of a barter economy, which of course we learned about in Unit 1. Archaeologists have been able to learn about these trade networks from finding artifacts from other groups in places that group did not frequent. Like, for example, projectile points made from minerals only found in Labrador were found in the St. Lawrence Valley and carbon dated to that particular time. So we know that trade networks existed between these areas. At this point in history, the European population was undergoing rapid growth, and they began looking outward for resources to feed their people, and that's what ended up instigating contact between the two. So, let's review. I would like for you to complete the activities in Brightspace. Make sure to take a break if you need one. Get up and have a stretch. It's very important to take your breaks when your brain and your body needs them. And I'll see you next time.